Good morning. I'm Denise Smiler, Chair of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. At this time, I would like to ask everyone to please silence your cell phones and all electronic devices. With 7 board members present this morning, I'd like to now call today's meeting to order, and I would note for the record that Commissioner Manzano Diaz is participating by phone. Sarah, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair.
Oh, good morning, Sarah. Thank you. In addition to the 7 board members, we also have our ex officio members, Fred Strathmeyer, representing Russell Redding, Secretary for the Department of Agriculture, Adria Zimmerman, representing Pat Brown, Secretary for the Department of Revenue, and Jennifer Langen, representing Stacy Garrity, State Treasurer. Thank you, ex officios, for joining us. As the first order of business, I'd like to now ask everyone to please stand and join me in a recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
By way of announcements, the board held an executive session yesterday, Tuesday, January 28th, to discuss personnel matters and to conduct quasi-judicial deliberations relating to matters coming before the board. I would like to now ask for the approval of the board meeting transcript and minutes from the October 3rd, 2024 meeting. May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the minutes and transcript of the October 23rd, 2024 meeting.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed? The motion passes. I would like to now ask for approval of the board meeting transcript and minutes from the November 20th, 2024 meeting.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board approve the minutes and transcript of the November 20th, 2024 meeting.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Now we will hear from our Executive Director, Kevin O'Toole. Kevin.
Good morning, Chair Smiler. Good morning, members of the board. For my report this morning, I would like to share the key data regarding gaming revenue produced by the Pennsylvania casino industry in calendar year 2024. Our Office of Communications recently issued 2 press releases. One summarized revenue for the month of December 2024, and the other provided information about the entire calendar year of 2024. Gaming revenue for the month of December reached $533 million in taxable revenue. That figure helped to propel calendar year 2024 revenue from all sources of gaming activity to $6.1 billion. The $6.1 billion is a 7.73% increase over the combined gaming revenue of $5.7 billion in calendar year 2023. The resulting gaming tax revenue for 2024 was $2.66 billion, an 8.53% increase over the $2.45 billion in gaming tax revenue generated in 2023. Breaking down the $6.1 billion total revenue figure, land-based casinos generated $3.38 billion in gaming revenue from the play of slot machines, table games, and poker. That represents a 1.5% decrease when compared to 2023. Online casino games, online table games, and online poker revenue for 2024 amounted to almost $2.2 billion, a 25% increase over the $1.7 billion produced in 2023. Sports wagering revenue for calendar year 2024 was $510 million, an 11.36% increase over the previous calendar year. These figures depict some pretty obvious tendencies. One being that online casino gaming in its first 6 years continues to grow at a significant clip. Also, sports wagering continues to gain more and more followers, as evidenced by significantly greater handle, totaling $8.4 billion this past year, a 9.62% increase over the previous year. Overall, Pennsylvanians continue to show that licensed and regulated gambling is an activity that they enjoy participating in. As we move into the new year, the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board and its staff will continue to do its part to ensure that tested and approved games, whether offered in a retail casino facility or online, are intended to protect the public and ensure fairness in all aspects of gaming activity. Before I close, I would like to note that gaming taxes are certainly very important, but equally important are the local share assessments that the casino industry funds. In the past several weeks, public notifications were made by a number of counties that local share assessment funds were being dispersed to local municipalities. These disbursements are aimed at improving infrastructure, public safety, and community health. Indeed, these projects are truly beneficial to the community and they make a difference. It is these assessments and disbursements that are made on a local and a county-wide basis that benefit so many communities in the Commonwealth and make the gaming industry so important to so many people. That's my report for today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kevin. Next, we will hear from the Director of Budget, David Wren. Dave?
Good morning, Chair Smiler and board members. I'm here today to present a recap of expenditures through the first half of the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024. Board expenses for the first half of the fiscal year were $25,676,000, comprising $22,527,000 in personnel expenses and $3,149,000 in operating expenses. Compared to the prior year, personnel expenses increased by $1,273,000, while operating expenses grew by $1,197,000. Total payroll costs amounted to $22,527,000, including salary costs of $13,346,000 and benefit costs of $9,181,000. The increase in personnel expenses is primarily attributed to an increase in the employee count, union negotiated raises, and increased benefit costs. Operating expenses through December totaled $3,149,000. The largest operating expenses included $1,356,000 for services, which includes IT consulting expenses and interagency billings, $747,000 for rentals and leases, $746,000 for other operating expenses, which includes the categories of subscriptions, which is primarily database services for background investigations, and insurance, which includes the directors and officers' insurance. Overall, the growth in operating expenses reflects increased investments in technology modernization to support organizational operations, and timing differences in payments for the director's insurance and IT billings from the Office of Administration. The expenditure trends for the first half of the fiscal year indicate alignment with projected growth in personnel and operating expenses. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? No? Thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.
Now we will hear from our Human Resources Director, Heidi Zula. Heidi.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. The Office of Human Resources has one motion for your consideration today relative to the hiring of 3 individuals. The following 3 individuals have completed the background investigation and drug screening and are ready for presentation to the board. Jonathan Inman has been selected as a casino compliance representative at the Rivers Casino Pittsburgh and is recommended for hire by Greg Hazori, Director of Casino Compliance. Jacob Garland has been selected as a casino compliance representative at Hollywood Casino York and is recommended for hire by Greg Hazori, Director of Casino Compliance. Finally, Brianna Blaine has been selected as a licensing analyst for the Bureau of Licensing and is recommended for hire by Sean Hannon, Director of Licensing. Unless there are any questions, I ask that the board consider a motion to approve the hiring actions as indicated.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the applicants for hire as proposed by the Human Resources Director.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Next is our Office of Chief Counsel.
Morning. The first agenda item for the Office of Chief Counsel is relates to a temporary regulation which Senior Counsel Robert Wood will present.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. This morning, as Steve said, I have one item for the board's consideration, temporary rulemaking number 125-252, which relates to table games, rules, and procedures. This package contains new table games, variations on existing table games, and some variations on side wager options. Additionally, this package will make a couple of corrections to published temporary regs that are out there for table games, rules, and procedures. Prior to this morning's meeting, copies of these materials were provided to you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them this morning, or if not, I would ask the board to adopt a motion approving these regs.
Thank you, Robert. Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board adopt temporary regulation number 125-252 regarding table games, rules, and procedures as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next before the board are 6 petitions. Each of these petitions are being brought before the board on the documentary record as the Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the requested relief. In each of these matters, the board has, in advance of this meeting, been provided with the entire documentary record, a file of record prior to today. The first petition before the board today is Stake Logic USA Limited and Sega Sammy Creation Inc.'s joint petition for approval of a change of control. Stake Logic USA Limited is licensed with the board as an interactive gaming manufacturer and is wholly owned by is a wholly owned subsidiary of Stake Logic BV, a private company incorporated in the Netherlands. Sega Sammy Creation Inc. is a Japanese company fully owned by Sega Sammy Holdings Inc., a publicly traded company. Sega Sammy USA Inc. is also a wholly owned subsidiary of Sega Sammy Holdings. It's a tongue twister. and filed an application for a slot machine manufacturer license. Both Sega Sammy Creation and Sega Sammy Holdings, I wish I would have read that before. Have submitted an application as affiliates of Sega Sammy USA. On July 26, 2024, Sega Sammy Creation and Stake Logic entered into a shared purchase agreement. Per the agreement, Sega Sammy Creation will purchase Stake Logic and all subsidiaries, and a result in Sega Sammy Creation becoming 100% direct owner of Stake Logic BV. If approved by the board, the closing date is expected to occur on January 30th, 2025. The petitioners also request that certain information in the pleadings be maintained as confidential. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the relief requested, subject to conditions in its answer. And with great relief, I now put this matter before the board for consideration.
Any questions or comments? Could you say that Sega Sammy thing? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant the petition for approval of a change of control as described by the Office of Chief Counsel. I further move that petitioner's request for confidentiality be granted. Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Next before the board is a joint petition seeking approval of a Dutch foundation's acquisition of an indirect ownership interest in an iGaming manufacturer. Wasden PA LLC is a licensed iGaming manufacturer and is a company that provides interactive gaming to iGaming operators and certificate holders in Pennsylvania.
Wasden, PA's current ownership flows through two intermediary companies to an individual by the name of Radslaw Chira. For estate planning purposes, Mr. Chira has decided to establish a Dutch foundation similar to a trust called Wasden Stichting, which will hold the vast majority of the ownership in Wasden, PA. Mr. Chira's role in Wasden Stichting will be like that of a beneficiary of a trust, and he will effectively remain Wasden, PA's 100% indirect beneficial owner. Additionally, two directors of the foundation have applied for licensure with the board. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the requested relief, subject to conditions outlined in its answer, and OEC has also requested that certain information in the answer be maintained as confidential, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant the petition for approval of the change as control as described by the Office of Chief Counsel. I further move that OEC's request for confidentiality is granted in part, as will be explained in the board order.
Second.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Next is Hilliard Inc.'s petition for removal from the prohibited gaming service provider list. Hilliard Inc. provides sales and services of janitorial supplies and equipment. On December 18th, 2008, Hilliard was placed on the prohibited gaming service provider list after they failed to cure deficiencies in their application for licensure as a registered vendor. On September 12th, 2012, the board issued an order granting a request from Hilliard to be removed from the list subject to payment of past due investigative fees and a civil penalty to be due within 15 days of the board's order. Hilliard failed to comply with the board's order and remained on the prohibited gaming service provider list. Hilliard is now again requesting removal from the list and is in full compliance with the board's earlier order. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to this request, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant Hilliard Incorporation's petition for removal from the prohibited gaming service provider list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next is a request for removal from the involuntary exclusion list. On January 16, 2016, while at the Mohegan Sun Pocono Downs, Christopher Gillespie and a friend were speaking with a female patron when another friend stole the patron's phone. Mr. Gillespie was charged and pled guilty to disorderly conduct. Consequently, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Mr. Gillespie on the exclusion list, and thereafter, on August 16, 2016, the board placed him on the list. In the request before the board, he requests removal from the list. He avers that he has no longer had any contact with the individuals who he was with that night, and that he has now chosen a sober lifestyle and has been sober for 3 years. As it has been over 8 years since Mr. Gillespie was placed on the exclusion list, OEC has no objection to his request to be removed, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board grant Christopher Gillespie's petition for removal from the involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next before the board is a request for removal from the self-exclusion list. On September 9th, 2014, an individual with the initials MT placed himself on the list, choosing the lifetime self-exclusion option. On October 6, 2024, MT filed a request for removal from the list, stating that he has not gamed in the Commonwealth since placing himself on the list, and further stating that he is committed to abstaining from gaming and only wishes to utilize other entertainment services offered at casinos. MT included with his petition a problem gambling assessment verification form signed by a certified assessment provider confirming that an assessment of MT was performed and that problem gambling treatment was not recommended. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer stating that they had no objection to MT's request, despite the fact that MT did violate his exclusion on 4 occasions between 2015 and 2017. OEC did not allow those those violations to stand in the way of their recommendation that it be removed. However, since over 7 years has passed since the last violation, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board grant MT's petition for removal from the casino self-exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion adopted.
The final petition before the board today is a second petition requesting removal from the self-exclusion list. On November 15th, 2013, an individual with the initials PR placed himself on the list, choosing the lifetime self-exclusion option. On May 7th, 2024, PR filed a request to be removed from the list. PR included with his petition a problem gambling assessment verification form signed by a certified assessment provider confirming that an assessment of PR was performed and problem gambling treatment was not recommended. PR did violate his exclusion on 2 occasions, once in 2015 and once in 2019. However, on both of those occasions, he did not game. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer stating it had no objection to PR's request to be removed from the self-exclusion list, as now more than 10 years has passed since his placement on the list, and he's supplied all the required documentation pursuant to the board's regulations, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant PR's petition for removal from the casino self-exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next presented withdrawals and reports and recommendations is Deputy Chief Counsel Chad Zimmerman.
Good morning, Commissioners. The next matter before the Board today pertains to several unopposed petitions to withdraw applications or surrender the credentials of the following individuals and entities: Olga Bejela, Jonathan Daly, Ember Sub LLC, Escrow Newco Corp., Colin Henson, Apple Rose Masarigan, Jeff Yass, Dylan Slaney, Christy Hill, Istvan Lagarts, Andrew Leonard, Liv Biesemans, Mark McLaughlin, Brian Carroll, Benjamin Parr, Joseph Heffernan, CEP v. Co-Investment Limited Partnership, Clairvest Equity Partners v. Limited Partnership, and Clairvest Equity Partners v.A. Limited Partnership. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objections to any of these withdrawals or surrenders. As a result, if the board chooses to grant the requests, in every case it would be doing so without prejudice to the requester. These matters are all now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board issue orders to approve the withdrawals and surrenders as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next before the board for consideration are 11 reports and recommendations received from the Office of Hearings and Appeals. These reports and recommendations, along with their evidentiary record for each hearing, have been provided to the board in advance of this meeting. Additionally, the persons involved in each have been notified that the board is considering their matter today and that each would have the ability to come forward and briefly address the board. If any of the persons who are the subject of one of these reports and recommendations would like to address the board, I would ask them to come forward when their matter is called. The first report and recommendation before the board today pertains to Tejanea Bradley Johnson. Ms. Bradley Johnson holds a non-gaming employee registration and worked as a games presenter at Evolution US LLC. On September 4th, 2024, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a complaint for emergency suspension of Ms. Bradley Johnson's registration after receiving notice that she was criminally charged with felony and misdemeanor offenses. As a result of these charges, the board's executive director issued an emergency order suspending Ms. Bradley Johnson's registration. A hearing in this matter was held in October 2024. OEC appeared at the evidence and provided testimony and documentary evidence. Ms. Bradley Johnson appeared but chose not to testify. Evidence presented showed that on August 18, 2024, while gaming at Live Philadelphia Casino and Hotel, Ms. Bradley Johnson took chips from a roulette table on 10 separate occasions, totaling $1,790. She then wagered with the chips and won approximately $500. Consequently, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that the emergency suspension of Ms. Bradley Johnson's registration remain in effect, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that the suspension of Tajanea Bradley Johnson's non-gaming employee registration remain in effect.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next is the report and recommendation regarding Zane Raccoon. Mr. Raccoon holds a gaming employee occupation permit and works as a table games dealer at Mount Airy Casino Resort. On August 27, 2024, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a complaint for emergency suspension of Mr. Raccoon's permit after receiving notice that he was charged with 2 felony offenses. As a result of these charges, the board's executive director issued an emergency order suspending Mr. Raccoon's permit. A hearing in this matter was held in September 2024. OEC appeared for the hearing presenting testimony and documentary evidence. Mr. Raccoon appeared and testified on his own behalf. Evidence and testimony showed that Mr. Raccoon, while heavily intoxicated, got into a physical argument and altercation with his girlfriend, now his wife, resulting in him being charged with felony strangulation, simple assault, harassment, and felony aggravated assault. Mr. Raccoon testified that prior to this incident, he had never been charged or accused of any violence, that he was heavily intoxicated at the time of the incident, and that he has sought treatment since. He further provided letters from the table games instructor at Mount Airy who spoke to Mr. Raccoon's personality and demeanor at work, as well as an unsigned letter from his wife stating that the incident occurred due to his intoxication and he was seeking help for his drinking. Following a hearing, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that suspension of Mr. Raccoon's permit remain in effect, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that the suspension of Zane Raccoon's gaming employee occupation permit remain in effect.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next is another report and recommendation stemming from an emergency suspension. Carmen Vincente holds a gaming employee occupation permit and worked as a table games dealer at Mount Airy Casino Resort. On August 27, 2024, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a complaint seeking emergency suspension of Ms. Vincente's permit after receiving notice that she was criminally charged with felony and misdemeanor drug offenses. As a result of these charges, the board's executive director issued an emergency order suspending Ms. Vincente's gaming permit. A hearing in this matter was held on September 12, 2024. OEC appeared at the hearing providing testimony and documentary evidence. Ms. Vincente appeared and also testified on her own behalf. Evidence presented at the hearing showed that the charges stem from allegations that after a search warrant was obtained and executed for Ms. Vincente's home, the search found controlled substances and drug paraphernalia along with a large sum of cash and firearms in her home. Additionally, there were 2 children in the home and the controlled substances were accessible to them. Testimony further showed that Ms. Vincente was part of a group chat discussing the sale and usage of controlled substances. Ms. Vincente testified that there were 2 individuals who were in custody for these allegations and that she had nothing to do with the situation. Consequently, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that the emergency suspension of Ms. Vincente's permit remain in effect, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that the suspension of Carmen Vicente's gaming employee occupation permit remain in effect.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
The next report and recommendation before the board today pertains to Tyler Norwood. In March of 2022, Mr. Norwood was issued a gaming employee occupation permit to work as a sportsbook ticket writer for American Wagering, Inc. at Harrah's Philadelphia Casino and Racetrack. On April 22, 2024, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a complaint for revocation of Mr. Norwood's permit after receiving notice that while working at Harrah's, he had placed tips he received in his pocket instead of in the designated tip box to be shared with his fellow coworkers. A hearing in this matter was held in August of 2024. OEC appeared at the hearing providing testimony, documentary, and surveillance evidence. Mr. Norwood appeared but declined to provide any testimony or evidence. Evidence presented showed that Mr. Norwood on 2 occasions received tip money, pretended to place the money in the tip box, and then later placed the money in his pocket. Mr. Norwood was terminated from American Wagering because of this incident. After hearing all the evidence presented, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that Mr. Norwood's permit be revoked, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Tyler Norwood's gaming employee occupation permit be revoked.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Jason Watson is the next report and recommendation before the board today. In August 2017, Mr. Watson was issued a gaming employee occupation permit and worked as a field technician for Aristocrat Technologies. On October 24, 2023, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a complaint to suspend Mr. Watson's permit after his failure to comply with his statement of conditions. Specifically, at the time of the renewal of his permit, it was discovered that he had outstanding taxes owed to the IRS for the years 2016 through 2018. Mr. Watson was to provide documentation based upon a special condition in his statement of conditions within 1 year of his renewal, showing that it satisfied all taxes owed, enter a payment plan for the outstanding payments, or that he was having his wages garnished to satisfy the payment plan. He was also required to produce a 2019 tax transcript showing whether he owed taxes for that year. Mr. Watson failed to apply with this special condition. A hearing in this matter was held February 2024. OEC appeared offering testimony and documentary evidence. Mr. Watson appeared and testified on his own behalf. Following that hearing, based upon his testimony, the record was left open to allow Mr. Watson to provide additional information. That second hearing was held in September 2024. However, he failed to appear and the record was then closed. A report and recommendation was issued recommending that Mr. Watson's permit be suspended, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Jason Watson's gaming employee occupation permit be suspended.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Locke Canal is the next report and recommendation before the board today. Mr. Canal was issued a gaming employee occupation permit in 2018 and was employed as a table games dealer at Rivers Casino, Pittsburgh. On May 12, 2023, Locke Canal submitted his renewal application for his permit. On May 13, 2024, the Office of Enforcement Counsel sent Mr. Canal a notice recommending denial of his renewal application based upon his criminal record, since initially being granted a permit. A hearing in this matter was held August of 2024. OEC appeared and presented testimony and documentary evidence. Mr. Canal appeared and testified on his own behalf. Evidence presented at the hearing showed that in November 2018, during Mr. Canal's initial application process, he amended his application to include a DUI offense, which was a second offense. He again amended his application in January 2019 to include another DUI, which was a third offense, which was a felony. Mr. Canal testified that he had not had any employment-related issues during his time as a table games dealer. Consequently, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that Mr. Canal's renewal application be denied, as his felony conviction renders him ineligible to hold a permit, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and Locke Canal's gaming employee occupation permit renewal application be denied.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Gregory Brown's matter is next before the board. On April 10, 2024, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Gregory Brown on the exclusion list. A hearing in this matter was held September 2024. OEC appeared presenting testimony, documentary, and surveillance evidence. Although receiving proper notice, Mr. Brown failed to appear. The evidence and testimony presented at the hearing showed that on April 16, 2022, Mr. Brown left a child approximately 10 to 12 years old unattended in a vehicle at Live Philadelphia. Prior to him placing a bet, Mr. Brown was confronted by security, escorted to the parking lot, and then permanently evicted. The child was left alone for approximately 10 minutes before Mr. Brown returned to the car. Mr. Brown violated his eviction on several occasions by entering Live Philadelphia. Additionally, Mr. Brown had other incidents of bad conduct in the casinos in the Commonwealth, consisting of past posting bets at Rivers Philadelphia, failing to pay for services at a restaurant at Live Philadelphia, and violating on several occasions his permanent evictions from Rivers Philadelphia. After hearing all the evidence presented, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that Gregory Brown be placed on the board's involuntary exclusion list, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Gregory Board, you're requesting that he remain on the involuntary exclusion
Be
list?
placed on the involuntary.
Be placed on the involuntary exclusion list. It's not quite what it says in this little blurb here. All right, is that clear?
Yep.
Okay.
May I have a second, please?
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
The report and recommendation pertaining to Jack Mars is next before the board today. On May 1st, 2024, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Jack Mars on the involuntary exclusion list. OEC appeared presenting testimony and documentary evidence. Although receiving proper notice, Mr. Mars failed to appear. The evidence and testimony presented at the hearing showed that on December 20th, 2023, and February 15th, 2024, Mr. Mars engaged in collusion with both a table games dealer and table games supervisor at Rivers Casino Pittsburgh during play at Interblock's roulette gaming system. The table games dealer would deliberately spin the ball in the wrong direction, which resulted in an invalid spin, and then without surveillance review and in a manner that's inconsistent with Interblock roulette, the table games supervisor would approve the invalid spins, resulting in Mr. Mars and another patron winning money to which they were not entitled to receive. Mr. Mars was charged with theft-related felonies and misdemeanors. He was accepted into the Accelerated Rehabilitative Disposition Program and is required to complete community service, pay restitution, and also may not enter Rivers Casino. After hearing all the evidence presented, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that Mr. Mars be placed on the board's involuntary exclusion list. This matter is now ready for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Jack Mars be placed on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Anna Truskin is the next report and recommendation before the board today. In August of 2022, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Ms. Truskin on the board's involuntary exclusion list, alleging that on June 29, 2021, she left a 14-month-old child unattended in a vehicle while she made a deposit at the sportsbook at Valley Forge Casino Resort. On March 22, 2023, the board issued an order placing Ms. Truskin on the list. In April of 2024, Ms. Truskin filed her request to be removed from the list, saying that she understands that she made a terrible error in judgment, she's embarrassed by her actions, and is concerned that her placement on the list will label her as a bad parent and could affect her professionally if she decides to return to teaching. OEC filed an answer objecting to Ms. Truskin's request. A hearing in this matter was held in August 2024. OEC appeared with documentary evidence pertaining to her original placement on the list. Ms. Truskin appeared and testified on her own behalf, reiterating the reasons that she stated in her petition requesting early removal. Additionally, stating that she has complied with the board order excluding her from casinos, and even if removed from the list, she would not game at Valley Forge as they've permanently evicted her. Following a hearing, a report and recommendation was issued recommending denial of Ms. Truskin's request for early removal from the list, as she did not present evidence of extraordinary circumstances that would justify her removal from the list before at least the 5 years had run. This matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Anna Truskin's petition for removal from the board's involuntary exclusion list be denied and that she remain on the list.
Commissioner Doherty seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next before the board is a report and recommendation stemming from a request for early removal from the involuntary exclusion list. The underlying facts in this matter are that on October 22nd, 2022, Mr. Ojakim Miller left 5 children unattended in a vehicle at Presque Isle Downs Casino while he gamed. In January 2023, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition requesting that Mr. Miller be placed on the board's list for his actions. Consequently, on May 24, 2023, the board issued an order placing Mr. Miller on the list. On June 13, 2024, Mr. Miller filed a petition requesting removal from the list. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer objecting to this request. A hearing on this matter was held in September 2024. Mr. Miller failed to appear for the hearing. OEC appeared and moved to dismiss the petition based on Mr. Miller's absence. A report and recommendation was issued recommending that Mr. Miller's petition be dismissed or denied, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that Ojakim Miller's petition for removal from the board's involuntary exclusion list be denied and that he remain on the list.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The final report and recommendation before the board today stems from a request for early removal from the voluntary self-exclusion list by an individual with the initials BN. By way of background, BN placed himself on the interactive gaming self-exclusion list on October 25th, 2023, choosing the lifetime exclusion period. In BN's request for removal from the list, he claims that he himself did not sign up for the the exclusion list, but rather that his significant other at the time signed him up for the exclusion. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer objecting to the request, and thereafter, the Director of the Office of Hearings and Appeals issued a decision and order denying the request. BN appealed the decision, and a hearing was held on October 8, 2024. BN failed to appear for the hearing. OEC appeared at the hearing and made an oral motion to dismiss BN's petition. Following a hearing, the report and recommendation was issued recommending that BN's petition for early removal from the list be dismissed or denied, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals as described by the Office of Chief Counsel, and that BN's petition for removal from the interactive gaming self-exclusion list be denied, and he remain on the interactive gaming self-exclusion list.
Second.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
That concludes matters of the Office of Chief Counsel. Go Birds.
Thank you, Chad, Steve, and Robert. We will now have the Bureau of Licensing matters presented by the Director of the Bureau of Licensing, Sean Hannon. Sean.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. First licensing matter for your consideration is the renewal of a sports wagering certificate for Stadium Casino RE LLC, doing business as Live Hotel and Casino Philadelphia. The Bureau of Licensing, Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement, and Office of Sports Wagering Operations has completed its review of the documents, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that you consider the renewal of Category 2 licensee Stadium Casino RE LLC's sports wagering certificate.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant the sports wagering certificate renewal as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
The next licensing matter for consideration is the approval of interactive gaming and sports wagering operator licenses for Hillside, Pennsylvania LLC, doing business as Bet365. Formed in Delaware on November 28, 2022, Hillside's principal place of business is in Marlton, New Jersey. The company operates an interactive gaming and sports betting platform for use in the Commonwealth. Hillside received interim authorization on May 15, 2024. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has completed its investigation, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report, and the approval is ready for consideration. I have provided you with draft orders and ask that you first consider the order to approve Hillside, Pennsylvania, for an interactive gaming operator license.
Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant the interactive gaming operator license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
And next is consideration of Hillside, Pennsylvania for a sports wagering operator license.
Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board grant the sports wagering operator license as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
In addition, we have consideration of 5 video gaming terminal establishment license renewals for CHR Corp. doing business as Rudders. The Rudders locations being presented for renewal are stores 36, 37, 56, 60, and 77. The Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement has completed its investigation, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report for each. I provide you with draft orders and ask the board first consider the order to renew the video game terminal establishment license for Rudders Store Number 36, located at 3050 Hilderberg Road in York Springs.
Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board grant the video gaming terminal establishment license renewal as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next is the order to renew the license for Rudders Store Number 37, located at 27335 Route 75 North in Mifflintown.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board grant the video gaming terminal establishment license renewal as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Next is the order to renew the license for Rutter's Store Number 56, located at 368 Lewisberry Road in New Cumberland.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board grant the video gaming terminal establishment license renewal as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Also, the order to renew the license for Rutter's Store Number 60, located at 4425 West Market Street in York.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant the video gaming terminal establishment license renewal as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
And finally, the order to renew the license for Rutter's Store Number 77, located at 77 Benvenue Road in Duncannon.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board grant the video gaming terminal establishment license renewal as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Next, there are principal, key employee, and qualifier licenses. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with a proposed order for 6 principals, 4 key employees, and 1 qualifier. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board grant the principal, key employee, and qualifier licenses as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
There are also principal and key employee temporary credentials. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order regarding the issuance of temporary credentials for 5 principals and 17 key employees. I ask that the board consider the order approving these credentials.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board grant the temporary principal and key employee credentials as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Additionally, for your consideration are gaming employee permits and non-gaming employee registrations. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a list of 489 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted temporary or full occupation permits and 191 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted registrations under the authority delegated to the Bureau of Licensing. I ask that the board consider a motion approving the order.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the applications for gaming employee occupation permits and non-gaming employee registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next, there is a recommendation of denial for 1 gaming, 3 non-gaming applicants, and 1 principal applicant. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with the order addressing the applicants who the Office of Enforcement Counsel has recommended for denial. I ask that the board consider the order approving these denials.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel continues to request denial in each matter.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board deny the gaming, non-gaming, and principal employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter for your consideration is withdrawal request. In each case, the license, permit, or registration is no longer required. For today's meeting, I have provided the board with 26 gaming and 18 non-gaming applicants. I ask that the board consider the order approving these withdrawals.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board grant the withdrawal of the gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
In addition, we have an order to renew the gaming service provider certification for GeoComply Solutions Incorporated, doing business as GeoComply, as well as initially certify Synergy Glass and Door Services LLC. I have provided you with a draft order and ask the board consider the order certifying these companies.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the gaming service provider certifications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Finally, for your consideration are gaming service provider registrations. The Bureau of Licensing provides you with an order and an attached list of 8 registered gaming service provider applicants. I ask that the board consider the order registering these gaming service providers.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the gaming service provider registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Sean. Next is the Office of Enforcement Counsel, Cyrus Petrie. Cyrus.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. The Office of Enforcement Counsel will present 15 matters today for the board's consideration, in which we will request the approval of 3 consent agreements, 4 revocations, 1 suspension, and 7 involuntary exclusions. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Category 4 licensee Stadium Casino Westmoreland, RE LLC, doing business as Live Casino Pittsburgh. The matter will be presented by Assistant Enforcement Counsel Juan Sanchez. Representatives for Live Pittsburgh are present, and at this time I request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record, and that all non-attorney witnesses please stand and be sworn.
Yes, I'm Tom Deal, Vice President of Legal for Stadium Casino Westmoreland, RE LLC. And I'll let the gentleman next to me go ahead and introduce himself.
Sean Sullivan, Executive Vice President and General Manager of Live Casino Pittsburgh.
Kirk Dean, the Risk and Safety Manager at Live Casino Pittsburgh.
Brent Colston, Vice President of Gaming Operations, Live Casino Pittsburgh.
And although they're not necessarily going to make a separate presentation, they're going to be available for answering questions, and therefore, as indicated, it would be appropriate to go ahead and swear them in at this point.
I would also ask them to spell their names for the court reporter.
I will start with D-I-E-H-L for last name Deal.
Sean, S-E-A-N, Sullivan, S-U-L-L-I-V-A-N.
Kirk Dean, K-I-R-K-D-E-A-N.
BRENTCOLSTON.
Okay. Now, gentlemen, would you stand and be sworn in by the court reporter, please? OEC, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair Smiler. Members of the board, Juan Sanchez, S-A-N-C-H-E-Z, Assistant Enforcement Counsel with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. This consent agreement involves Live Casino Pittsburgh's use of revoked slot machine software on the casino gaming floor. On May 9th, 2022, the board's Bureau of Gaming Laboratory Operations issued a memorandum to each slot machine licensee, which revoked and replaced gaming system software, as well as provided for a period of 180 days to complete this transition. After the tolling of the 180-day compliance period, the Bureau of Casino Compliance confirmed with Live Casino Pittsburgh staff that the revoked software was still active in 11 slot machines in service on Live Casinos Pittsburgh's gaming floor for 36 hours and 18 minutes in violation of the board's regulations. The Office of Enforcement Counsel and Live Casino Pittsburgh respectfully request that the board approve the consent agreement and stipulations of settlement, which requires Live Casino Pittsburgh to pay a civil penalty of $7,500, as well as a $2,500 administrative fee for costs incurred by the board staff in connection with this matter. If you have any questions, we would be happy to address them at this time.
Thank you. Live Casino Pittsburgh, would you, excuse me, would you like to address the board?
Yes, we heard Attorney Sanchez's overview of the facts and also reviewed the consent agreement prior to coming in here, and it both accurately reflect the facts as we understand them.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Oh, I apologize. I was
Okay.
also going to introduce, I just introduced
Yeah,
the
because
facts.
I think we had a lot of questions.
Yeah,
so go ahead.
100%. 100%. Hopefully I can anticipate several of those. As you know, whenever we review, whenever we receive a consent agreement, we, number one, want to review what happened, of course. And we also want to put together, what remediation has already taken place before we start our review, and if necessary, if we can improve that. And we did that in this case, and it reminded me of a podcast I was listening to recently on ancient Rome from a professor at the University of Wisconsin. And he was presented with the question of why it was that ancient Greece, within its peak of Alexander the Great, fragmented within 40 to 50 years. Whereas in contrast, the Roman Empire, from its peak, maybe the 2nd century, continued for multiple centuries thereafter, depending whether you include Byzantium in 4 to 12 centuries afterwards. But at any rate, his answer is what I thought applied here. He said, Rome was much better at putting in place policies and procedures to ensure their success, no matter who the person was at the helm. So when we reviewed here, we looked at our policies and procedures that were in place for reviewing revocation notices. And that's what we're discussing here at issue. And ours, we found out, was much more event-driven. And what by that I mean, whenever the Bureau of Gaming Lab Operations would send out a notice, it would trigger a response, where our team would look at the floor, which would trigger ordering software, which would trigger receiving the software, which would trigger making the change. But if anything along that chain broke, there wasn't a parallel process or procedure to make sure that it was revisited. So in this case, what immediately took place, and this was something that took place in 2022, our operator recognized, hey, this had fallen through the cracks, and within the 180 days to review it, at some point that chain had broken, and put in place a policy and procedure where he would review the notices, like literally it was a physical type of application where it was on his desk, and he would review those.
Who's the he?
In this case, it would be Josh Willett. He was the actual gaming service manager. He's not here with us today, but he's something that we reviewed and was part of this process of reviewing and helped us understand what his process was and what led to the events that we're discussing here today. And then now that we have additional eyes on that as well, we said, hey, we like that, but we also think we can make it even better still, because it still would have a situation where you had the process and you had somebody that was reviewing it. We want multiple eyes on it. We want redundancy that's built into the process. So then we take it and then say, in addition to that, why don't you put the notices on a spreadsheet? And why don't you put those spreadsheets on something that's going to be reviewed on a weekly basis? And you'll have the gentleman at the end of the table here. It was also he's our VP of Gaming Operations. He has a weekly slots review where that's being added to it as well, so that you would have the list. And again, these take place, there's usually several of these notices per month, where you have a cascading effect where new ones come on and other ones fall off, depending upon whenever the software is upgraded. It's been described to me by analogy as like whenever you would update Windows 11, when something has to be renewed and has to be refreshed. By definition, once it's been renewed and updated, the other one falls off, which is what took place in this situation. So again, what we found out, kind of like a lesson from ancient Rome, you want to make sure your policies and procedures are in place so that even if one person falls off and doesn't see it, we have a system that runs in parallel that tracks that, and that's essentially what we took place here. In this instance, the gentleman that we referred to earlier was coached and said, hey, thanks for making sure to let us know, let us know what you've done in this instance. But he was advised that this is not protocol, and we want to bring these things to our attention earlier. We think he responded well. We also think it's also it's an organizational responsibility to make sure our people succeed and we have policies in place to assist them. And since 2022, I guess when this took place, I think November was the deadline, we have not had a reoccurrence. So that's something that shows that we're at least going in the right direction. And with that, and before your question, I think we also have a few words from our general manager.
I would just simply add that we take these very serious. We're embarrassed that we're here. We don't want you to recognize us. So hopefully we're infrequent enough, but I think Tom touched on a couple of points. We did counsel the person, Josh, who's our slot tech manager, on the failure of this, in a sense disciplined him. We have set up additional procedures. As Tom mentioned, we haven't seen a reoccurrence in close to 2.5, 3 years. So something might be working, could also say we're lucky, but these things happen a lot. They happen 4 or 5 times a month. So our track record looks pretty good. Brent has stepped up his effort in weekly meetings, one-on-ones with Josh to make sure there's nothing outstanding. So I think we're bolstered up and ready. Never say never, but I think we've done a good job. And I just wanted to express that we do take these serious. We do not like being here as much as we love to see faces and friends. But I would just simply conclude in that. And Kirk is our compliance manager. And of course, he takes these even more serious and understands the complications if we're here frequently. So love the Rome analogy and what he said.
If you have any other questions, we're certainly available.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Yes, I'd like to add, how often do you guys get these updates? How often do they come through? You said
Yeah.
4 or 5 times a month?
Yeah, I mean, it's, and Cyrus and others can attest to that, it's frequent, and we do get them, and this one was an interesting curveball. They're usually 90 days notification. This one was 180, so I think Josh got kind of lazy, and it drifted off his plate somehow, at least that's what he says. But the truth of the matter is he dropped the ball, and he's held accountable for that. But this one was a longer lead time, and I think it got him out of his cycle and dropped it. And no excuses. I mean, we messed it up.
How many slot machines do you have on the floor?
So we're a Category 4, 750 machines, and this particular item is related to 11 machines. So it's not a massive issue, and it's an upgrade, I believe. So upgrades, I get upgrades for my vehicles all the time. It doesn't mean the brakes are going to fall off and I'm going to get in a wreck. It's an upgrade, and it happens. So I don't think the Commonwealth, the constituents, the customers were affected in any negative way, but clearly when we get these notices, we want to be responsive.
So out of 750, you just missed 11 machines?
Yes.
Like, how did that?
Hey, listen, if it was one machine, it's still the point of the matter, and we take it seriously, and, but 11 machines in this particular one, sometimes it might be more, sometimes it might be less. And the way Tom described it, the manufacturer sends a notification, gaming looks it over, they approve, and correct me if I'm wrong, they approve the upgrade, and then they give it to us. We order the parts for the upgrade. So there is a process. There's a couple of failure points if you're not on your game. So we're stepping up our game, and we're going to make sure there is redundancy and that we don't come back here with this.
Anything else, Commissioner Dillon?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Stadium Casino Westmoreland, RE LLC, doing business as Live Casino Pittsburgh, as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon, seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for the steps you've taken to address the situation.
Hope not to see you soon.
Next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and interactive gaming operator BetMGM. The matter will be presented by Senior Enforcement Counsel John Crow. Representatives for BetMGM are present, and at this time, I would request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record, and that all non-attorney witnesses please stand and be sworn.
Hello, my name is Sarah Brennan, Senior Director of Compliance.
Hi, my name is Alana Sacerdoti, Responsible Gambling Manager.
Hello, my name is Joseph Caputi. I'm Senior Legal Counsel for the regulatory team.
Would you also spell your names for the court reporter? And then all non-attorney witnesses, please stand and be sworn.
Yes. Sarah, S-A-R-A-H, Brennan, B-R-E-N-N-A-N.
Alana, A-L-A-N-A, Sacerdoti, S-A-C-E-R-D-O-T-E.
Thank you for spelling that.
Sorry.
Joseph Caputi, JOSEPHCAPUTI.
And non-attorney witnesses, please stand and be sworn.
Yes.
OEC, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. John Crowe, C-R-O-H-E, Senior Enforcement Counsel for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. This matter involves interactive gaming self-exclusion violations. In March 2021, BetMGM completed an audit which revealed that 148 accounts had wagering activity by individuals on the interactive self-exclusion list. Of these accounts, a total of $252,035.55 was deposited by self-excluded individuals, and a total of $82,460.30 was withdrawn by self-excluded individuals, for a total difference of $169,575.25 retained by BetMGM. Then, on April 9th, 2021, BetMGM self-reported that a self-excluded individual was able to access their account and deposit a total of $580. Next, on July 22nd, 2022, BetMGM self-reported that a self-excluded individual who was able to gain access to their account deposited a total of $700 and withdrew $100, a total difference of $600 retained by BetMGM. Finally, on July 10th, 2023, 2 additional self-excluded accounts had wagering activity while individuals were on the interactive gaming self-exclusion list. Of these accounts, a total of $183,065.45 was deposited by self-excluded individuals, and $92,916.59 was withdrawn by self-excluded individuals, a difference of $90,148.86 retained by BetMGM. In total, these reviews revealed that $436,381 was deposited by self-excluded individuals, and $175,476.89 was withdrawn by individuals on the interactive self-exclusion list, a difference of $260,904.11, which was retained by BetMGM. The Office of Enforcement Counsel and BetMGM LLC respectfully request that the board approve the consent agreement and stipulations of settlement, and that BetMGM LLC pay a civil penalty of $260,905, as well as a $2,500 administrative fee for costs incurred by board staff in connection with investigations into this matter. And finally, that BetMGM make a donation to the Pennsylvania Council on Problem Gambling in the amount of $20,000.
Thank you. BetMGM, would you like to address the board?
Yes, thank you. We appreciate the commission, the board, and the Office of Enforcement Counsel working with us to reach an agreement in the settlement agreement, and we agree with the terms. We've worked closely through these issues with the board, first by self-reporting when they were identified, and then carefully through the remediation measures that were implemented as a result. BetMGM is committed to the protection of patrons in the Commonwealth and regrets and apologizes that these 4 issues have occurred. As indicated by the Office of Enforcement Counsel, each was self-reported by BetMGM upon self-audit. Once these individuals were identified as having had access to our platform, we immediately closed their accounts and then did internal investigations to understand how each instance occurred. The first instance, and obviously the most significant with the largest number of individuals having had access to the platform, was addressed immediately, as it was understood that this issue occurred because the PII of the individuals was not being effectively consumed by our platform. We addressed this issue by instating a process of manual review for individuals. As soon as we get the data from the board, we do a line-by-line manual review of each data set to ensure that there are no false positives, that there are accurate identifying details per individual. Then we run the information through our back office system, and we run the final number of individuals who's been uploaded against the final report readout of the individuals who have actually been updated to ensure that the numbers match. This is a manual review that is conducted by our RG team, led by Alana. I would also like to indicate that obviously the first issue occurred in 2021. Our staff at the time, during startup nature of our business and the industry, was very small. At this time, we have 9 individuals committed to this process within the compliance department at BetMGM. At the time of this instance, the compliance department at BetMGM was roughly 9 people in total. Now there's 9 committed just to RG, and the department on the whole is numbers nearly 100. Our commitment to compliance and responsible gambling expands past just manual processes, but also has been committed to increasing training of all of our staff, enhancements in our technology and the way in which our back office upload system for self-excluded patrons has been configured, manual reviews, audit by our internal audit team, and oversight and additional training by our director of responsible gambling, our manager of responsible gambling, and in partnership with Epic, who trains our entire business team on the importance of RG across all streams. The second, third, and fourth instances of violation were smaller in nature. 3 individuals were able to gain access through manual errors by an individual who misentered the PII of the patrons. One was inadvertently not removed after having been removed from the board's list and then reinstated to the board's list. And the fourth was a technological misconfiguration that, despite strenuous testing, could not be replicated by our technical teams. We have not had any further instances of the same issues since these have occurred, and the remediation measures we've put into place have been effective. We're happy to answer any additional questions you have, but again, I would like to thank you all, thank the Board, Office of Enforcement Counsel, and affirm our commitment to RG by BetMGM.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Actually, Commissioner Manzano-Diaz, do you have any questions?
Not at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments?
Just one.
Commissioner Dillon.
The one, it looks like the last persons, you had 2 people at the end there that were your last 2 that were discovered. They deposited $183,000? Is that what I was told?
That was the combined deposit between the 2 individuals, yes.
I mean, who's got that kind of money to deposit $183,000? Doesn't that raise a red flag? Like, if somebody puts that big of a deposit into an account, doesn't that, like, don't somebody got to look at that?
We do evaluate players for any inconsistency in play behavior. We have an anti-money laundering team, but we have players of all value who wager on our platform. And so, you have recreational players, you have players who deposit more than others. So based only on deposit amount, it wouldn't necessarily raise a flag if there weren't other issues that would have been flagged by fraud, risk, or AML. We are happy to offer a more private conversation about the types of risk and fraud flags that may be raised by a patron, but it isn't information that we would share in a public meeting.
Thank you.
And I only have one question. You said, I think it was the second time it was a human error.
Yes, ma'am.
So what do you do about that? How do you address that?
That's a challenging one because, as you know, humans make mistakes. So when the issue was identified and the individual who had made the mistake was forthcoming in the fact that they had identified how it happened and that it was a miss on their part, we went over the process with them again, exactly how it works, and that individual has not made the same mistake twice. It's challenging. BetMGM is an operator that operates in 29 states, and there's 29 different ways that we consume self-exclusion lists. And so, unfortunately, at this point in time in the industry, much of it is still manual. And anytime you have manual intervention, you will have mistakes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and BET MGM as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and principal entity licensee Rush Street Gaming LLC and principal licensee Mark Arndt. The matter will be presented by Senior Enforcement Counsel Ashley Gabriel, representatives for Rush Street Gaming LLC, and Mr. Arndt. Mr. Arndt's present, okay. And at this time, I request that those individuals please introduce themselves for the record, and that all non-attorney witnesses please stand and be sworn.
Stand and be sworn.
My name is Mark Arndt, Pressure Gaming CFO,
And-
MERC-ARNBT.
Good morning, John Donnelly, counsel on behalf of Rush Street, and my name is Donnelly.
Mr. Arndt, would you stand and be sworn, please?
Good morning. Do you swear or not swear to the
OEC, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Ashley Gabriel, Gabrielle, Senior Enforcement Counsel for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. This proposed consent agreement involves principal entity licensee Rush Street Gaming LLC, which I will refer to as RSG. RSG performs management consulting services for Rivers Casino Pittsburgh and Rivers Casino Philadelphia, and for sports wagering operator and interactive gaming operator licensee Rush Street Interactive PA LLC. The Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act and the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's regulations require an application for the renewal of a principal license to be submitted at least 180 days prior to the expiration of the license. RSG failed to timely submit the principal license renewal application for Mark Arndt to the board's Bureau of Licensing. Mr. Arndt has been continuously licensed by the board as a principal since 2018 and employed by RSG as Chief Financial Officer since May 2022. The due date for the submission of Mr. Arndt's principal license renewal application was April 30th, 2023, which is 180 days before his license expiration date of October 30th, 2023. Mr. Arndt's renewal principal license application was ultimately submitted to the Bureau of Licensing on October 31, 2023, which is 184 days late. According to RSG, the application was filed late due to staffing changes. As a result, a new licensing coordinator has been appointed who has created a new process to track renewal license applications. The Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board approve this consent agreement and stipulation of settlement. The terms of the consent agreement include a provision that RSG shall reinforce its existing policies and provide training and guidance to its employees, which will minimize the opportunity for a similar incident to occur in the future, that RSG shall pay a civil penalty in the amount of $13,800 and $2,500 for the costs incurred by the Office of Enforcement Counsel, the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement, and other related staff in connection with this matter within 5 days of the board's approval. If there are any questions, we are happy to address them at this time.
Rush Street, would you like to address the board?
Yes, thank you. Just to point out, this is, it's happened one time in getting close to almost 20 years, coming up pretty soon. So it was just a human error. The person who was responsible for tracking this is no longer with us. A new person's in who's very talented, and we recognize that principals have responsibility too, so we're not trying to dodge that, but sometimes oversights occur, and that's what happened here.
Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, I do have a question. You said oversights occur, somebody new is in, so were there any processes or procedures or anything that were modified to make sure it didn't happen again?
Yes, there's the three, or actually four things. There's now a master calendar that's being kept by the young lady who does it now, and she's a veteran employee, had been in Rush Street earlier on, very talented, left and then came back. So I've got a lot of faith in her, and so does the company. She also instituted a tracking system. There's she deals now directly with property compliance, who does get notices from the staff, and she deals with me, too, who gets notices. So we've got 4 fail-safes in place. Hopefully, this will not happen again.
Had you received notice of this?
Did I?
Yes.
I receive a notice. Sean sends me a big notice all the time with all the dates, and I send it up to Chicago. What I didn't do prior to that time was I didn't then calendar it, and I do now calendar it. So, my fault, too.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the consent agreement between the Office of Enforcement Counsel and Rush Street Gaming LLC and Mark Arndt as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next 5 matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed complaints seeking the suspension or revocation of permits or registrations previously issued by the board. The complaint in each matter has been filed with the board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in each complaint. The individual named in each complaint failed to respond within 30 days, as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each respondent. Therefore, all facts in each complaint are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each matter, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration, I apologize, Andrea Roberts, ROBERTS, Assistant Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Naeem Littles. Mr. Littles was previously employed as a security officer at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia. While working at Live's 10th Street checkpoint, Mr. Littles permitted 2 underage individuals to enter the gaming floor upon payment of $40. Live terminated Mr. Little's employment as a result of this incident. Mr. Littles was criminally charged for his actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Naeem Littles.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the revocation of Naeem Little's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Good morning, Chair Smiler, members of the board. Dustin Miller on behalf of the Office of Enforcement Counsel, MILLER. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the gaming level 2 employee occupation permit issued to Jawan Hunter. Mr. Hunter was previously employed as a sportsbook supervisor at Live Philadelphia. Mr. Hunter was criminally charged with theft by unlawful taking, theft by deception, theft receiving stolen property, and access device fraud. All of these charges are third-degree felonies. This criminal case is active and scheduled for a pretrial conference. Following these charges, Mr. Hunter was terminated from Live Philadelphia. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board suspend the gaming level 2 employee occupation permit issued to Jawan Hunter.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the suspension of Jawan Hunter's gaming level 2 employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Demetrius Smith. Mr. Smith was previously employed as a cashier and food host at Valley Forge Casino. While he was working the cash register at Valley Forge, a patron handed in a wallet left behind by another guest. The wallet contained $600 in cash. Mr. Smith was observed walking to a storage area with the wallet and fidgeting with the wallet and his pocket. When he handed in the wallet, $100 was missing, and ultimately, he admitted to taking the money. He was terminated from Valley Forge Casino. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board revoke the non-gaming employee registration issued to Demetrius Smith.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the revocation of Demetrius Smith's non-gaming employee registration for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Shannon Spriggs. Ms. Spriggs was previously employed as a guest services representative at Live Philadelphia. While working at Live Philadelphia, Ms. Spriggs pocketed patrons' tips as opposed to putting them into a shared tip box in compliance with the policy. She was terminated from Live Philadelphia and criminally charged for her conduct. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Shannon Spriggs.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board approve the revocation of Shannon Spriggs' gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Kai Loon Ho. Mr. Ho was previously employed as a table games dealer at Live Philadelphia Hotel and Casino. Mr. Ho was involved in a cheating scheme that took place over several weeks at Live Philadelphia with 4 patrons. In some instances, he would change the outcome of the games to favor the patrons, and at other times, he would change the patrons' bets after the outcome had been determined. He was terminated from Live Philadelphia and criminally charged for his conduct. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Kai Loon Ho.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the revocation of Kai Lan Ho's gaming employee occupation permit for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
The remaining matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed petitions seeking the involuntary exclusion of individuals who are inimical to the interests of the Commonwealth and are licensed gaming therein. In each instance, the petition for exclusion has been filed with the Board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in the petition. The individual named in each petition failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each individual. Therefore, all facts in each petition are deemed admitted, all filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each instance, if the board orders the proposed exclusion, each individual's photo, personal identifiers, and a summary of their inimical conduct may be placed on the board's public website. Once again, in each matter, we will provide a brief summary of the facts and make a request for the appropriate board action.
Dustin Miller, once again on behalf of the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next 2 matters on the agenda are related and are a request to place Kai Loon Ho and Hang Lin on the involuntary exclusion list. With the board's permission, I will read one set of facts and then request that each individual be placed on the exclusion list. As stated in the previous matter, Mr. Ho was previously employed as a table games dealer at Live Philadelphia when he was caught facilitating a cheating scheme. Hang Lin was one of the patrons involved in that cheating scheme and benefited approximately $45,974.25, to which he was not entitled. Mr. Lin was permanently evicted from Live Philadelphia and criminally charged for his actions. This time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board place Kai Loon Ho on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of Kai Loon Ho to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
And now, at this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Hang Lin on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the addition of Hang Lin to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Ralston seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Again, Juan Sanchez with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next 2 matters on the agenda are related and are requests to place Joshua Hazard and Devontae Schooners Miller on the involuntary exclusion list. With the board's permission, I will read one set of facts and then request that each individual be placed on the exclusion list. Mr. Hazard and Mr. Sconiers Miller arrived at Wind Creek Bethlehem Casino and Mount Airy Casino Resort on multiple dates, bought into table games with numerous counterfeit bills, and in some instances received cash payments which totaled $39,900 after little or low wager gameplay. The Pennsylvania State Police arrested and criminally charged them with 2 criminal complaints for actions at each casino. Both men pleaded guilty to felony offenses and are court-ordered to pay full restitution. Both casinos permanently evicted Mr. Hazard and Mr. Sconiers Miller from their property as a result of their actions. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Joshua Hazard on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Ralston moves that the board approve the addition of Joshua Hazard to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Devontae Sconiers Miller on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Regan moves that the board approve the addition of Devontae Miller to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Hickernell seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Again, Juan Sanchez with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Amarilis Ortiz on the involuntary exclusion list. Amarilis Ortiz left their 12-year-old child unattended for approximately 26 minutes inside the bus lobby of Mount Airy Casino Resort and went inside to play slot machines. Law enforcement did not file criminal charges arising out of this incident, but the casino permanently evicted her from their property. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Amarilis Ortiz on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hickernell moves that the board approve the addition of Amarilis Ortiz to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dillon seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Again, Juan Sanchez with the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Jin Wan Yu on the involuntary exclusion list. Mr. Yu used a clicker device to keep a running count of the cards while playing at a blackjack table game at Wind Creek, Bethlehem on 3 dates and won a total of $430 with the cheating device. Pennsylvania State Police criminally charged him with misdemeanor cheating offenses. Wind Creek Bethlehem banned Mr. Yu for a day from their property, and he has not paid restitution. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Jin Wan Yu on the board's involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dillon moves that the board approve the addition of Jim Zwan Yu to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Dermody seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
John Crow, once again for the Office of Enforcement Counsel. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Christy Kessler on the interactive gaming and voluntary exclusion list. Ms. Kessler opened an interactive gaming account on the Unibet's interactive gaming platform and created 9 accounts on Unibet using the personal identifying information of other individuals. Unibet closed all affected accounts. The Office of Enforcement Counsel now requests that the board place Christy Kessler on the interactive gaming involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments? May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dermody moves that the board approve the addition of Christy Kessler to the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board's involuntary interactive gaming exclusion list for the conduct described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Regan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Thank you. That concludes our business.
Thank you. The last item on the agenda today is public comment. Is there anyone in the room that would like to address the board? Seeing no one. That concludes today's meeting. The next public meeting of the board will be held on Wednesday, February 26, 2025, at 10 a.m. at this location. And now, may I please have a motion to adjourn?
Commissioner Regan moves to adjourn.
Commissioner Ralston, second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.